Welcome to part 11 of our Galaga tutorial in Godot here. In this part, we're going to get our enemies shooting back at our player. The player can take damage and the enemies can crash into the player, but let's get them shooting. Now we're going to use the same structure. We're going to need to create a bullet that the enemies can use so that it can collide with the player instead of the enemies. And then the enemy's also going to use a weapon here. In order to get our bullet working, we're going to need to make a couple of changes here about the bullet. So let's right-click on the bullet scene here, and we're going to duplicate it. And I'm going to name it enemy bullet.tscene there. I'm going to click on duplicate. I'm going to open up this enemy bullet scene here from my file system view. And just to keep things straight, I'm going to rename the root node of enemy bullet. Make sure you're in the enemy bullet tab here. I'm going to rename the root node enemy bullet. So just to double check, you've got enemy bullet tab named enemy bullet. The bullet tab is named bullet. And just to make sure we've got this set up right. Now everything is pretty much perfect for this. All that we really need to do is we need to go and change it so that this bullet hits the correct thing. So I'm going to go over to my collision here. This bullet is on layer 2, so it's an enemy. It is not on layer 1. And then I'm going to change it so that it collides with layer 1 instead of layer 2. So I just switched these. It's on layer 2, collides with layer 1 here. Okay? And that's kind of all we need to do. We're just going to save this scene now. Go from there. The weapon scene is almost perfect. It's almost what we need for the enemy as well. In fact, kind of the only difference here is that we want the player weapon to shoot when you click or when you press space. We want the enemy weapon to just shoot on a timer. Go from there. Okay? So let's actually go into our enemy weapon, our weapon script here, and let's just add that. Instead of duplicating it and adding new code, let's just add a flag in here. Export var enemy weapon, which is a bool, is false. I'm going to start out off as false, so by default, this is not an enemy weapon. You can go from there. Okay. We're going to use this. So instead of just shooting on click, we're going to set it up so the reload timer also shoots the weapon. Just makes it really nice and easy. So in our ready function, we're going to go if enemy weapon, start the reload timer. Reload timer.start. There we go. Okay. So all this is going to do here is this is just going to say when it spawns, if it's an enemy weapon, start the timer. Let it keep going. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is on reload timer timeout. So I'm going to scroll down to on reload timer timeout. And when we're done reloading, I'm going to go if enemy weapon, then I'm going to shoot. Like that. And that's it. When I shoot, it's going to start the timer again. Then the timer is going to come around. The timer is going to time out. If it's an enemy weapon, it's going to shoot. So just every time that it ticks, it's going to shoot. And that's all we need to do there. So let's save this. Let's go back to our enemy scene, and I'm going to drag in a weapon here onto our enemy scene. Yep. Just like that. Weapon is good. The only thing I need to do is I need to go over here to my inspector and check that it is an enemy weapon indeed. Okay. Now let's save this, try it, and let's see what we get here. Oh no! This is colliding and it's not working quite the way we wanted. Our enemy, if you notice, we're getting that the enemy is colliding with the bullets here, which is not quite what we want. So let's go check and see what we've got. We did add the enemy here. So we've got the enemy has a weapon, but we left the wrong bullet in here. We need to drag enemy bullet in here. So I'm going to go find enemy bullet.tscene, drag that into the bullet for the enemy weapon. So it's enemy bullet here, And the enemy weapon there. Now let's give it a shot. And you can see the enemies are there. And they're shooting. They're shooting very aggressively. And if you look, it does do damage. It does do damage to the player, does quite quickly. You may also notice we're getting a lot of spam about the enemy left the play area and was removed. That's because it's removing the bullets as well. So the enemy bullets are leaving the scene and getting cleaned up nicely as well, which is actually pretty nice. It's a nice function. Let's make the enemies a little bit less crazy here, and let's go set this reload time to 1.5 on the weapon in the enemy scene. There we go. And I'm actually going to go back to the map as well to get rid of some of that message spam. So in the map script here, where it says on remove area body entered, I'm just going to comment out this line, Control K, or put the little pound sign in front of it here, because I don't need all these messages here. And let's give it another test. There we go. You can see the enemies are shooting, and you can see I'm taking damage. Bam. You can see the player's taking damage here, and it's printing out my hit points as we go. Oops. And it's working pretty good. Are they able to destroy the player? Yep. Oh, let's see. Well, I'm trying not to smash into them. Yep, there we go. So you can look, you can see that the enemies are shooting. They're able to destroy the player or crash into the player. The player's hit point is tracking nicely here, and the player died correctly. Hooray! It's working. The very basics of our game are working here, and we've got this sort of going, but we're going to need to add more so that we can present this information to the player. And we're going to add a user interface, a really, really simple user interface, so that we can display like a health bar and points and go from there. Look for that in our next video.